All right, this is an interview at the Clarion Hotel, Oneonta, New York. It is the 24th of March, 2004, approximately 1:50 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
Robert L. Groves. I was born in Lodi, Wisconsin. No, I wasn't born in Lodi. I was born in Conrath, Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin,
Okay.
on a farm, and in 1922, January 1922.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
I attended the Oneonta school system. I started school when I was 5, and I graduated from Oneonta High School when I was 17,
Okay, when did you move to New York State then?
when I was 5 years old.
5 years old, okay. Do you remember where you were and your reaction when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
I sure do. I was working at the place I worked until a year ago. Wyckoff's Florist in Oneonta here. And on December 7th, I was 19 years old, and when I heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor, I was alarmed and upset and thought I should be taking part in something.
Mm-hmm.
And I waited a year or so and then enlisted.
You enlisted?
Yes.
Okay, why did you select the Army?
Well, at the time, I wanted to be a hero. I thought maybe I could be in the Air Corps or something like that, and bomb hell out of all these places and everything. And I was a runt, and I'd never been any place in my life outside of Oneonta much. I lived on a farm, and I was pretty naive. And so when I enlisted, I told them what I wanted to do, and next thing I knew, I was a medic in the United States Army.
Where did you go for your basic training?
I went to Fort Dix, and from there I was transferred to Camp Butler, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. That's where I got my basic training.
That must have been quite a shock to be that far away from home if you had never been away from home. How did you cope with that?
I was awful homesick. Yeah, I was pretty miserable for a while, but there was always something going on, and we were busy, and I soon got over it. Mm-hmm. I was young and never having been away from home. I made a lot of friends and acquaintances, and that was important to me.
Mm-hmm. How long was your basic training?
Actually, I don't exactly remember.
Oh, that's okay.
I think basic lasted for maybe a few months. Didn't seem like more than that, because by let's see, where was it here? I think it was. We left Fort Dix. I didn't write down.
Oh, that's okay. You don't have to have exact dates.
I was shipped to Fort Dix. I know in the process there, and I don't remember being there very long. But I went to Camp Butler very soon after that, and basic training lasted for I don't remember how long. Been too long now.
Now, as part of the basic training, were you given medic training, or did you go somewhere else for the medic training?
No, I learned it right there in the office with a doctor and a dentist, and I worked in the medical dispensary, and at first I didn't even do that. I was out training like an infantry one, you know. I'd never shot a gun in my life, even though I grew up on a farm. My brothers all hunted, and I didn't, and so I had to take a gun apart and go out on the range and fire it, which I thought was ridiculous because I was in the medics by then, and they made me qualify, and I qualified as marksman and came back in and resumed my medical duties. But after a while I finally became a dental technician and worked with a dentist most of the time. But we were attached to an MP battalion, 509th MP battalion, and attached to 1st Army, and we were with them most of the way until I came home. Just shortly before I came home, we transferred to another outfit for purposes of getting us home.
Now, what was the dental equipment like? Was it the old foot-operated drill?
Absolutely, a treadle machine that drilled, and
It sounds
I
painful.
had a big chest with a drawer in the top of it, or a thing that lifted out that contained all their instruments and everything. And my duties were to slap the instrument into the hand of the dentist that I was working with if he wanted it. And God help you if you didn't give him the right one. And I didn't know anything about it, but I learned.
How did you sterilize the equipment?
With where we had electricity, we had a small thing to sterilize it with a little, like a little tray. You know, you put in a heater, and that was one of my duties: sterilize the stuff and take care of it, and pack up when we moved, which was frequently when we got in Europe.
I hate to ask this, but when you didn't have electricity, how did you desterilize it?
I think we boiled things.
Boiled things, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Did you have a lot of customers?
Surprisingly, yes, but I was working with a dentist most of the time who was a kind of a playboy, and I think he joined the Army to see the world. And we did a lot of work in the States here before we left, but as soon as we got overseas, he just went in a Jeep every afternoon someplace to see everything. We were not just behind 1st Army headquarters, so we weren't far from the front ever. But he had to see everything, so he left me alone a good share of the time. I took it upon myself, and I cleaned teeth for nearly everybody in the battalion. In my time off, I just had them make appointments, and I brought them in and cleaned their teeth and examined them if they had bad cavities. And we had a lot of boys from the South who'd never seen a dentist in their lives. And in one company, they were all from, C Company was all from the South. And their teeth were in terrible shape. And I used to make appointments. If he wasn't around to do anything for them, I made an appointment with the local field hospital wherever we were. And they got it right there and got the teeth taken care of. Most of them came out with better teeth than they ever had before.
Now, how did you go overseas?
I went over on a boat. It took me 2 weeks, I think. And we went up around, came down towards the island and landed near Bristol in England.
Now, did you go over with your unit?
Did I know what?
With your unit. Did you go as a whole unit, or did you go separately?
We went as a whole unit except for C Company. I think they joined us later, or else they joined us just before we went over.
Okay.
They were trained, did their basic training in the South, and the rest of the boys were all from New York and New Jersey, pretty much from the rest of the companies. And when we landed in Bristol, we didn't land in Bristol. I can't remember where we landed, but we went by truck to Bristol, and they had billets there for us. And I was there for 11 months before the invasion.
Okay.
And I certainly know where I was December 6th.
When did you go into Europe itself, continental Europe?
We went across the channel on D+3.
Oh, so you were that close to the front lines then when they went in?
We were right attached to 1st Army headquarters, and we were either just ahead or in back of them all the time, so we were near the front. And our MP outfit did traffic duty all the way across France, Belgium, and Germany. And
Now, when you went in on D3, was the beach still under fire? Or?
oh yes.
Uh-huh.
When we got the night before, we got offshore and anchored there, and I guess planes came over and strafed and everything else that night. The next day we landed, and they had the landing barges with the front drop down, you know, the vehicles dropped off, drove off. And I remember one of the buddies I knew was driving one of those Jeeps, had piled probably 10, 12 feet high with duffel bags of equipment and everything. And I thought I was going to have to wade ashore. And just before we left, he said, "Hop on, Bobby, and you won't get your ass wet." And I did. I climbed on top, and I think my fingernails are still in those duffel bags, because when we drove off that barge, it seemed like it was going to be easy. And all of a sudden, the Jeep went just like this. It hit a hole. And I flew right out. I was holding on like this, and my whole body flew out to the side, but I held on. I never got wet. But it was an experience I'll never forget. I was scared to death.
Were there still a lot of bodies on the beach and in the water?
There were some, but I didn't see that many
Uh-huh.
because we didn't go in that far. That first few days we went to a landing area and kind of got our outfit together. And I think we were there for a week or 10 days before we moved on. Just a little ways in, you know. But after that, we moved every time First Army moved, and sometimes twice while they moved, we moved. And it was our duties. My duties were to take care of the teeth, of course. Sometimes they lack time and send somebody out to see the boys on. They did traffic duty mostly, and all the way across to Germany, and during the war they were active that way. But it was a unique outfit.
In what way do you think it was unique?
Well, they were so active. They were able to do so many things, and they could move quickly and direct convoys through when they needed them fast to the front, that sort of thing. And of course, I was mostly at the headquarters and didn't get out that much, but I'd see them when people came in for health care.
Now, did you ever treat anyone or the dentist that you work with that had like a facial wound or lost teeth in some way?
No, it was mostly routine type
Routine.
thing. We didn't get. I think probably most of those boys went right to a hospital because they had that better facility
Right.
than we had. Ours was strictly field equipment, and we could repair a lot of things, but major surgery would be a difficult thing. In the first place, I wasn't trained for major surgery, you know, but I could handle what I learned how to do.
Now, did you ever, I know you weren't a dentist, but did you ever have to fill teeth yourself?
No, no. I considered being a dentist when I came out, and then went back to the shop where I'd worked before. I was there until a year ago.
Now, did you ever see any USO shows at all while you were in the service?
I don't think I ever saw any USO shows. No. Mostly we weren't where they were readily available for us, and I think we were too near the action for that, you know.
Were you ever given much leave time?
Relief time?
Leave time. Did you ever have much leave time?
I never had any. Never had
Well, it's because your dentist had it all.
That's right. No, I never had any. I never took any leave anywhere.
Now, I noticed you said you were in Berlin during the Potsdam conference, so you went right into Berlin,
Oh yes.
your unit.
We were promoted there.
Did you ever have any contact with any POW camps or the concentration camps at all? Were you
No,
ever near any of
no,
those?
I didn't get into any of that. No. But no, we were strictly First Army Headquarters unit, I guess you'd say, but, for health purposes and
Now, you said you were there for the Potsdam conference. Did you see any of the leaders that were there for the conference,
no,
or
I didn't.
you just were there?
None of them had a toothache.
Or if they did, they were afraid of that treadle drill, right?
Well, that worked pretty well. You'd be surprised. I used to do that in my sleep. Going on that in my sleep. And no, it was an interesting experience, but and I saw an awful lot of the country, an awful lot of Europe, because as we landed, we went through France, Belgium, into Germany, and to Berlin before I came home.
Now, did you ever, being near Berlin, did you ever have any contact with the Russians?
Only when we first got to Berlin. We were pretty upset because we were under Russian guard, and that annoyed hell out of us as U.S. soldiers.
What do you mean you were under Russian guard?
Well, when we got in Berlin, Berlin had been partially taken by the Russians, and they wanted the exclusive right to say they had taken Berlin. And so the Russians all over the place. And when we got there, we weren't allowed to go out of the building without permission from the Russian guards. We were actually like prisoners of war there, really, and that annoyed the hell out of us. But there were no bad incidents from it, but it was made us kind of mad for a while, you know.
Now, this was the whole headquarters unit?
Yep. Yep.
That's interesting.
And
How did your commanding officers react to something like that?
they took it in stride, I guess. They didn't seem to think there was anything difficult about it. They just took the orders, as we did. And eventually that straightened out so that we had a little more freedom. But to start with, we had to ask them, try to go out of a building, and there's a Russian soldier there with a weapon in front of you. You didn't leave.
Huh.
Made us awful mad.
Okay. When did you end up going back to the States?
I came back in 1945, I think it was. Let's see, I've got it written down here. I was finally shipped back, and it took a little while to. Transportation was slower then in troop ships and everything, but I was discharged on Thanksgiving Day of 1945.
Okay. When you returned home, did you join any veterans organizations at all?
I didn't. I don't think I even looked for any. I was fed up with the Army, and
Have you ever?
I'd had enough of it. I never joined anything. No, I never did.
Okay.
I was home a few days and went back to work.
So you didn't use? Did you use the GI Bill for anything?
No.
So you
I
didn't use?
was going to go to college,
Mhm.
and at one time I thought I'd go and become a dentist.
So if you started work, you didn't use your 5220 club either.
No. They needed me at the greenhouse where I'd worked before. There was two women trying to run a greenhouse, a good-sized greenhouse, and a flower shop, and where we'd had 5 or 6 people there before, you know, and they needed me so badly. I told them I'd help them out for a few months, and I never got away. And that was 1945, and I finally semi-retired a year ago.
Did you ever stay in contact with anyone that was in service with you?
Yeah, I hear from a couple of guys once in a while, and one of them stopped to see me once, and or a couple of them have, but Oneonta is a little out of the way for all the places down in New Jersey and New York City, you know, and that's where most of the guys I knew came from.
They didn't come by to have their teeth cleaned or anything.
No, but I had a lot of good friends in the Army. I was a T5 as a technician in the medical service.
Do you think that your time in the service had any influence on your life or changed your life in any way?
Oh, it certainly did. I was a farm boy. I'd never been away from home except to go to school. And it gave me certainly a look at the rest of the world, what it was like, and some of the problems it had. And you know, when you're kind of secluded in a small town and a farm and everything, you don't really realize what's going on, even though you read the papers and everything. You don't have any idea how big the place is. And I've never been sorry I was in the service, although I didn't like any of it. I hated the restrictions and everything, just like most people did, and thought it was a lot of baloney. But I can understand now why it was like it was. As I got older, I was young and impetuous then. At 19, you think you can conquer anything. And I was 23 when I came out.
Okay. Could you Tell us when and where that was taken.
This was taken in Liège, Belgium. And it was probably 6 or 7 months before the end of the war. But in the summer of 45 probably. And it doesn't show my thick curly hair that I had then, but I must have been about 23.
Mhm.
Close to it.
All right, well, thank you very much for your interview. Thank you.
Thank you.